I'm Ben Runkle. Thanks for the chance to speak to you today. I'm happy to discuss some of the strategies about writing a successful career grant developed in part on reflecting on my own career grant. The title is here on the screen, Developing Climate Smart Irrigation Strategies for Rice Agriculture in Arkansas. So that's funded by the Environmental Sustainability section within CBET in the Engineering Directorate. So it's big outdoor research. Nice to have a 5-year project that supports our investigations into methane emissions and other dynamics in rice production and ways to make that more sustainable in Arkansas, but with global relevance. So I collected a number of tips for the career proposers that I'll scroll through here. So the first thing that I wanted to suggest is that if you're doing an interdisciplinary proposal, that's really great, but recognize that the review panel, so I've served on 2 NSF career review panels, they do include disciplinary experts. So you need to make sure that you speak to all of the disciplinary experts that might be in the room. And so I would encourage you to think about how you can lean on one discipline and then branch into some of these other areas. Do consider the need to have a full integration of research and teaching. So the advice I heard that served me well was that in some way, the product of either would not be possible without the other one. So in other words, to do a really good research program, you need some of the output or interaction on the teaching side that you're developing. And to do the teaching well, you should find a way to bring in the research into there. That may or may not be possible for your discipline, but it's something that if you're able to do, helps create an integrated flow through the proposal. So mine in this area, I am doing work with an already established program that's actually headquartered in Arkansas, but I'm sure your states have something similar. Ours is Environmental and Spatial Technology East. It's a mostly high school or middle school age program at a number of the schools in the state. And it's something like a kind of project-based learning club or class in these different schools. And so I partnered with several of the schools to bring some of my research ideas into the classroom and have them actually help construct things that then I could use for my research. So that's a kind of feedback and interplay there. Of course, you want to do something you're interested in. I'd had some exposure to yeast through a class project that I was involved in beforehand. So I was able to meet some of the people involved, see what the students are capable of. I was able to talk to some of the teachers in advance, and I did get some letters of support for them for the proposal. And that's been really a fruitful and fulfilling and really interesting thing for me to be involved in. It's something I've certainly learned from in this process. The next thing I wanted to mention is that unlike many other typically 3-year grant cycles, this is a 5-year timeline, and that's one of the great benefits of the career program. It also provokes some challenges. You may not know where the research is going to take you, and you might have to have some kind of chained research questions. So I know that my proposal was written that way, and some of the ones that I've reviewed have also been written in that way, that you kind of say, based on the outcome of the first set of questions, I'll then go into this area. And you might have to create kind of several multiple pathways to figure out what to do there. And that's okay, but show kind of, if this fails, what's the corrective mechanism? How will you use these resources successfully? So the way my program was structured, I wrote it around 2 different PhD projects. So a kind of year 1 through 3 and a year 3 through 5 research project. So you can kind of think about, there's many different ways to structure the funding, but that was sort of the thing that I did, that you sort of want some overlap between those, but also to have a long-term vision of where the research is taking you. And then in the proposal, you can also talk about what is actually your 10-year, 20-year goal. What is your career aim? And how does this proposal help get you there? I can't emphasize enough the benefits of talking to program officers and to browse what has been funded. You know, the NSF website can be a little unwieldy, but it's definitely worth figuring out. It can also be so helpful to serve on panels, whether it's for NSF or other funding agencies. That gives you such insight into how proposals are written, the variety of styles they're written in. The program officers can really help, you know, raise things that may be a concern, may alleviate your concerns. I was nervous that this is an agricultural project. Why wouldn't the reviewers say, just send this to the USDA instead of to NSF? In fact, nobody has really worried about that. And we were able to show that this is really an engineering problem. It's an issue in terms of sustainability, and it's in some ways not totally necessary or appropriate for the USDA to fund it. It is really an NSF project, but it's something that I was nervous about, and it was something that was very helpful to get feedback from the program officers. The next advice I have is to get many readers on the draft. So start drafting it early, give the draft to many different types of colleagues from different disciplines, colleagues in your discipline, but maybe at a different university, people at your career stage, people a bit older, people a bit younger, maybe you have a postdoc or grad student who's particularly savvy and they could help give it a read. So I think I probably had a dozen people read different versions of my proposal, whether it was just the first page or two or the whole thing. And really, I think that the success of my career proposal is really in debt to those people who were able to read it and give really valuable feedback. So there's things like, I'm not getting captured within the first 3 sentences, to you need to really change, swap the order of section 6 and section 2 or something like that. So really substantial changes in feedback and different perspectives. They help you see when you're using jargon and when you're not. And that's really beneficial. Of course, another way to get readers on a draft is to submit multiple times. So I know the career lets you submit 3 times. I was lucky enough to be funded on my first try for a career, but it wasn't the first try with these ideas. So I submitted, I think, twice before to CBET in their regular open solicitation for proposals. And so I was able to get a lot of feedback there from there are gaps here and there. And I developed the right kind of pilot data and rewriting to be able to present an effective proposal. Okay, so next, I used many letters of support, and that's something I also like to see as a reviewer. Do take care with the precise wording. It feels always a little bit awkward to say, no, really, NSF only wants these 1 or 2 sentences that have to be phrased like this. A lot of people want to write kind of cheerleading letters. That can be challenging, but it's worth getting those right and to highlight in the text who these people are and what they're going to do for you. You can also use the facilities statement to include details from the collaborator. So that's a useful way to put information in there about what those people are providing you, what facilities they're providing for you. And that can include also on the education side or other researchers that you're collaborating with. The work I do is really collaborative. I have partners at the USDA ARS who are in the field with me and others. Some other ideas for these kind of collaborators. I had some colleagues write to say, oh, I'd love to, develop a special issue of a journal with you. So we put that as one of the ideas. I also had some international colleagues so that we can, in the final years of the project, do a kind of international comparison. Can the ideas that we're developing here in Arkansas translate into something that we can use in Korea or Italy or China or wherever? There might be something similar in your disciplines. The next one is really helpful. So many of us are in our disciplines of engineering, and we don't actually know that much about education, even though we are educators. And so there I really have benefited from partnering with some researcher, a professor in our ag education department. So there's also our university has a whole college of education. And so there's many people around who really know a lot about education and how to evaluate it. And so it's really helpful as a reviewer also to see, oh, they're not just doing some education, they're going to evaluate it. And they may actually be able to do research on the education side. So in fact, my grant has indeed supported some of the master's students in education as they present the findings of the surveys that we do before and after the proposal before and after the work in the classrooms to see how our work has impacted student views on science, on different career options, on the food and agriculture sector, and developing better ways to teach those students and to meet the education science standards is really helpful and interesting. And so having that kind of independent evaluator that can be part of your budget and give some summer salary for that researcher, that can be quite helpful. We also ask, I also have a panel of advisors on the research part, so I can call them up and say, hey, here's where I am in the proposal or in the grant now, the project, and they give feedback on it. And that's another way to bring in some kind of extra types of expertise. You need a strong letter from the chair. I think that's something that very often you'll probably be asked to help write or draft. And you really want this to demonstrate how the work that you're doing and how your position fit into the department vision. Are you in a supportive environment? If you see a kind of tepid letter from a department head, it doesn't really give you as much confidence as a reviewer of where is this person and are they going to be able to do what they're going to do? Are they supporting of your teaching? Maybe they would give even a course break, or what other opportunities are there? We want to make sure that we're supporting people who are in a supportive environment. This is a small tip I learned. When you're writing the project summary page, you're going to be evaluated on intellectual merit and broader impacts. You're not going to be evaluated on the overview. So make sure that you put some information and more text into those second and third windows than in the first window. Really think about what is the gap in research that you're filling, and then what is the impact. And particularly for these proposals, it's very common that the broader impact section will include a little bit about what the impact of the research is, but of course you're doing a lot on the teaching side, and that can count as a broader impact. Think stylistically about these proposals. Make sure you use all the pages. Don't leave the reviewer thinking, well, they only use 13 pages, and I'm left with this question, this question, and this question. You really want to fill out the text just to avoid that kind of perspective. Make it look nice. It can be really exhausting to read proposals, and it's very helpful if there's something like a graphic or a table on each page to help you, or every other page or so to help make sure you can read the fonts, that things are clearly labeled. You know, there is this sense if you're able to present your proposal well, you're going to be likely to present the results of the work very well as well. The last main point I wanted to say is to take care with gender and diversity. Make sure you do try to include that in broader impacts if it's authentic and legitimate to you, but people can also see through things that aren't necessarily going to translate as appropriate, you know, to those communities that you're necessarily working with. I was helping a colleague draft their career grant, and they said something like, oh, we're doing 3D manufacturing. We can make cars for boys and hair clips for girls or something like that. And I said, you know, that's really not the most inclusive way to think about gender anymore. So you really want to think about, make sure that you're aligned with kind of the modern vision of what an inclusive, diversity-friendly landscape looks like. And that you're not also just using those communities to make a fancy broader impact, but that you're really embedded, have a history of working with them, understand the nuance involved with different communities. I think that's really important to consider. As we're all, you know, at this time in America, a lot of us are getting all kinds of really innovative ways of thinking in this area. And it's important that what you do in that space is authentic, is legitimate, and builds on a foundation that hopefully you can already show that you have. So the last thing I'll end with is just good luck. I'm happy to be a resource for you. I'm looking forward to the conversations that we're going to have as part of this workshop. Thank you.